Hey, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Ramirez. As we head into the holiday season, I realize that there is a lot that we have to be thankful for. So I just want to thank not just my listeners who tune into this podcast, but also to those who are happy about my choices of what films I have introduced them to on my show. As you know, this show is a labor of love that I have poured into when it comes to the planning and preparations to get everything ready. So I thought that I would be able to explain to everyone on the podcast who is tuning in what they could expect before we head into the new year. Because I have been busy with my part-time job, I know that there won't be enough time for me to get every episode ready before my deadline, but I always have to keep up my toes for whatever comes my way. So I thought that starting next year, I'm going to change the format of this show. Instead of having myself describe to you about these movies that I have reviewed, they would be video podcasts instead. What this would mean is that I am going to be using Riverside FM that not only has better sound and image quality, but that it is free to download when recording video podcasts. So, the next time you tune into an episode, the episode will be video only. The landscape in terms of where podcasting is right now is heading toward the video podcasting direction. This would mean that for the next year, you, the listener, will be the guest star who will recommend whatever film that maybe someone has never seen or heard of before. For those who are listening as to how they will be on the video podcast episode, I will explain it to you. All you have to do is pick a movie that you recommend for the episode that will be listed in the "Which film or movie do you recommend" page. Next, I will watch the movie from the listener or subscriber of this podcast who has already submitted their film. Then, once we have both finished and watching the movie to prepare, you will then have to pick a day and time for the next podcast episode in which you will be filmed. All future video podcast episodes will be on the software Riverside FM. The free option only lets you record for 2 hours, which may seem like a bummer, but you have to choose wisely. The episode would later be shown on Spotify and YouTube. It's going to be a huge change for the show, but since I have been thinking about the direction of where this show might be heading, I think that now is the best time to make a huge step forward. Since I am well aware of what is happening not just in this industry, but in other professions that are now using AI tools and software that is making life easier for them. I thought that since there are so many other movies that I have been hesitant to see in the world that I won't have enough time for, it's more of a fresh new start and perspective that will make this show feel entirely different. It just goes to show that you can't start something new unless you try it. But don't worry, you can still listen to the audio podcast episodes on Radio Public and Google Podcasts if you are not comfortable with the video podcasts. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but it will grow on you once you become used to it. So, without further ado, today's film review is Love and Basketball, followed by my segment, Allow Me to Explain. And now, as they say, on with the show. This is Jordan Ramirez, and you are listening to Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. And now, here is my latest film review. My film review for this episode is Love and Basketball, released in 2000, directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood, starring Sanaa Lathan, Omar Epps, Alfre Woodard, and Dennis Haysbert. Monica, played by Sanaa Lathan, is known as a tomboy who loves the sport of basketball that makes her different from the other girls. She lives next door to Quincy, played by Omar Epps, who also loves the sport of basketball. It is through the love of this sport that they really connected. However, once they are both enrolled at USC, they encounter numerous challenges and changes that will derail their romantic relationship. What do I think of this film? I love it. Now, normally I am hesitant about watching sports films, but this sports film is also a romantic story between two people who not only love the sport that connects them, but it's more about their characters than just the game itself. I love how the film is a coming-of-age story that talks about your goals and dreams and what happens when you can't handle taking the pressure that could derail their romantic relationship. Monica in the film is fierce, independent, and always looking out for herself when she feels down and out. She is described in the film as a tomboy who plays sports that other boys would play. Take the opening of the film, for instance. When Monica is first introduced, she approaches the basketball court in Quincy's front yard. Quincy is with two of his friends, and Monica is wearing a t-shirt and a Lakers hat. The moment that Monica takes off her hat and reveals that she is a girl in front of Quincy and her friends, the reaction was mostly that girls can play basketball. It's such a great introduction to not only her character, but both Monica and Quincy's relationship as the film progresses. Monica's mom, played by Alfre Woodard, wants to do what's best for her daughter. As Monica enters high school and later goes to college, the basketball scenes in the film are the most intense for me as they pull me in and root for Monica with the most appropriate shots and angles. A great example is the contrast between Monica's victory for her team and her stardom is rising, while Quincy's stardom begins to crumble as he struggles to score a win for his team with the emotional stress hanging over his head. It is a great use of filming for the sports scenes that are not only fun, but helps us to understand the emotional implications that serve the narrative of the story and the characters. Gina Prince-Bythewood previously worked as a television writer in the mid-1990s. She was a track runner when she was at UCLA and played basketball when she was in high school. She had in her mind a personal project about a female basketball player that was taken from her own life. So she set out a goal by quitting her job, writing the script, and shopping it around Hollywood. Prince-Bythewood recollected about shopping the script to different studios. Every day my agent would say another one turned it down. Studios gave feedback that the film was too soft, that we needed scenes where a character is chasing her husband with a knife. Bythewood's script managed to reach the heads of the Sundance Institute and was invited to the director's lab where she cast multiple readings. Only one individual person who was at the director's lab was blown away by the script. Sam Kitt, who was then the head of Spike Lee's production company 40 Acres and a Mule Filmworks, and the film was sent to New Line Cinema. Spike Lee signed onto the project as the producer. Lee at that time was working on Bamboozled, also at New Line Cinema. For the casting of Monica in the film, they auditioned over 700 athletes and actors for the role. Gina Prince-Bythewood, in an interview with ESPN, said, "Anytime you see women playing ball on TV or in movies, it was so whack that it set women in sports back years. I promised myself I would never do that. If I was going to make a basketball movie, I'd do it right." We laugh about it today, but Sana had just done this shoot for Vibe in 1998, and it was a bikini shoot. In my head, I was like, this is so not Monica. Sana was pretty good, but she never picked up a basketball in her life. Sana Lathan was a graduate from the Yale School of Drama. However, Lathan was taken by the script that she wanted to play the character of Monica. They really wanted a basketball player who could act as opposed to getting an actress who could learn basketball. I had never really picked up a basketball. I can laugh now, but I was going through it. Gina was a basketball player. She was like, how is this girl going to look like a basketball player? The other person who was auditioning for the role of Monica was Nisha Butler, a high school graduate playing for Georgia Tech. Nisha was a model and was able to play basketball. It eventually came down to these two actors vying for the role of Monica. Both were sent to separate coaches. Sana was with a basketball coach, and Nisha was with an acting coach. Sana carried a basketball with her everywhere she went with Gina Prince-Bythewood. After some back and forth between Sana and Nisha for the role of Monica, Sana ended up getting the role. According to Jay Stern, the New Line position was, the love story has to work first and foremost with the basketball good enough. Sana worked her ass off. Omar Epps, who ended up playing the role of Quincy in the film, didn't play basketball when he grew up. Instead, he played Pop Warner football as well as martial arts and boxing. Omar described the preparation for playing basketball for his character in the film. So the basketball training was super intense. Gina was really hard on both of us about being on point when it came to hooping. We both put 100% into that. Sana worked so hard in preparation for the role, practicing day in and day out before she got the role of Monica. Alfre Woodard was cast as Camille, Monica's mother in the film, after she read the script and had a well-productive meeting with Gina Prince-Bythewood for the role. Gina Prince-Bythewood. My Alfre meeting was funny because it's Alfre Woodard first of all. She said that if I agreed to play Monica, she would play my mother. I had never acted before. But she said, obviously this movie is based on your life. This is you. I said, look, I really want you to do this movie, and we're going to find someone great to play the lead. She came aboard. Other actors who were cast in the film were Kyla Pratt, who plays the young version of Monica Wright. Dennis Haysbert was cast as Zeke McCall, Quincy's father, and Harry J. Lennox, who plays Nathan Wright, Monica's father. Once the cast was all set, filming began. The environment proved to be competitive for the actors on the set of the film. Gina Prince-Bythewood. All of the basketball in the film was just them playing. We only choreographed a couple of scenes for Sana. The rest was just getting to run and shoot. Erica Ranger, who plays Monica's USC teammate whose spot she took on the team, and I had the most competition. She thought that she had a better shot than me, and she doesn't. And what was not mentioned from Gina Prince-Bythewood was that Sana Lathan and Omar Epps had been dating during the casting and pre-production process of the film. It was kept a secret from everybody until they were on the set. Gina Prince-Bythewood. When Sana did a chemistry read with Omar before casting, she was great, and their chemistry was off the hook. Didn't know they were dating, though. I'm glad I didn't because it would have affected the casting. Omar Epps. Having the type of chemistry is... you can't buy that. But at the same time, we were still kids. We were just having fun. We ended up in that circumstance, and we went for it. The rest is history. Sana Lathan. Omar and I were like, we're not going to tell Gina because I have the feeling she could have a beef about it. She didn't know until we were on set. Everybody has a different philosophy about chemistry, and I also knew that's bullshit. People are like, if they are together, that means they won't have a chemistry. You either have chemistry with somebody or you don't. It has nothing to do with if you're dating or not. I instinctively knew this is something that needs to get in the way. When it comes to the honest portrayal of black life in the film, the characters on the screen were not from low-income or poor backgrounds. They were instead from middle-class and upper-class backgrounds who strive to do what is right for their family. Writer-director Lena Waithe. People may assume that you come from a poor background, but a lot of black people are working-class, middle, and upper-class people. That's really what this felt like. Omar Epps' character had more money with his dad playing in the NBA, but it was really about this kind of neighborhood, what it felt like to be young and black there, have a dream and fall in love, to not get along with your parents and sometimes still respect them. Harry J. Lennox. With this film, I was just grateful to breathe the fresh, normal air of a society that wasn't traumatized that way. Michael DeLuca, former president of production for New Line Cinema. This was Monica and Quincy's love story for each other and of the game. New Line had produced Love Jones, which definitely was a love story. It wasn't about societal traumas. Love is a universal language, and we trusted Gina to tell this story. Before the film was set to hit theaters, New Line Cinema told Gina Prince-Bythewood that there was a sex scene that needed to be changed, since it didn't look good enough. So she ended up shooting additional footage of the scene and edited it. The film was submitted to the MPAA, and the film came back with an R rating. This prompted a response from Gina Prince-Bythewood. I said, there's no nudity at all. How can you give this an R? They said because it's too real. I said, that should be a compliment, not give it an R because now girls can't see this. Gina Prince-Bythewood. Meet Joe Black had just come out in 1998, and in that movie, Brad Pitt loses his virginity and you see everything of his first time on his face. I asked, why is the male point of view okay, but mine isn't? But they would not back down. I didn't want to compromise, but the thought of girls not being able to see it, I hated that. My editor took a shot out, we resubmitted and got the PG-13 rating. If I had kept it an R, I would have been an idiot. Losing that shot didn't affect the movie in any way, and it was absolutely worth it. The film was released at the Magic Johnson Theaters at Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. It was just near the Crenshaw High School where they filmed the basketball scenes. Gina Prince-Bythewood. We really shot at Crenshaw High. We used girls from the basketball team. A lot of the crowds were kids from Crenshaw. We premiered it there, and there was such raucous screaming of support. We scored so high, it was at that moment I was like, I think this might be good. The film was only given one preview at the Sundance Film Festival. The majority of the audience went from an all-black audience to a 99% white audience at Sundance. The film proved to connect to its audience and was given a 5-minute standing ovation. The film premiered nationwide on April 21st, 2000, at over 1,200 theaters. The film was a box office hit. grossing more than $3.1 million on its first day and ending with $8.1 million on the April 21st, 23rd weekend. It became the second highest grossing film during that weekend behind U-571. Overall, the film grossed over $27 million at the box office in the United States. Worldwide, it grossed $27,728,118. Its reception was positive towards the lead performances of Sanaa Lathan and Omar Epps, Gina Prince-Bythewood's direction and script, and the balanced emotional weight in the story. The film managed to reach a number of real-life basketball players, including Nafisa Collier, 2019 WNBA Rookie of the Year and All-Star Minnesota Lynx forward, Diamond DeShields, 2019 WNBA All-Star Chicago Sky Guard, Cheryl Swoops, Naismith and Women's Basketball Halls of Fame first WNBA player signed, and Enka Nwamke, 2016 WNBA MVP and champion, Los Angeles Sparks forward. The film managed to receive numerous accolades, including being nominated for 5 NAACP Image Awards and winning 2, for Outstanding Actress in a Motion Picture to Sanaa Lathan and Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture to Alfre Woodard. I love this film as both a sports film and a romantic drama that is easily well balanced and has the right amount of emotional weight that makes the story not only believable, but also makes me sympathize and root for the main characters in the film. It's got a great script by Gina Prince-Bythewood. Along with her great direction, the performances by Sanaa Lathan and Omar Epps have convinced me, and let's not forget the wonderful score by Terrence Blanchard. This movie is one that I will definitely recommend to anyone who has yet to see this film. We will be right back with my segment, Allow Me to Explain. As we are nearing the end of the year, I thought that for this segment that instead of focusing on a major news story, I would instead focus on a single topic that is important in democratic institutions that is worth your time: local journalism and why we need them now more than ever. It's time for Allow Me to Explain. We are now living in an age where misinformation and disinformation is now so rampant on social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and other places that we see them and think of them as news. According to an analysis from the University of Pennsylvania from 2022, while only 4% of Americans have fallen into an echo chamber on social media, 17% of Americans have fallen into a partisan left, CNN or MSNBC, or partisan right, Fox News or Newsmax, television media echo chamber when consuming news on left-leaning or right-leaning networks as part of their diet. When a national news outlet, let's say the New York Times or the Washington Post, for example, takes a local news story, they create a narrative to feed to their audience by cherry-picking details and are only creating emotions or attention-grabbing headlines to generate clicks or subscriber money. So what are the reasons why we need local news now more than ever? First, local journalism is a great training ground for young journalists who want to get out in the field and give their local community a voice. Local people have a voice that has not been reported or put into their own community when it comes to covering local stories that people want to know about in their neighborhood. It's important that the local journalist is the most trusted person who can share important information that is relevant to the citizens in their community. It provides an opportunity to understand the business of local journalism and to build trust. Second, local journalism encourages and educates viewers about civic engagement. For countries to function as democracies, local journalists have to inform their community about what is going on in the state and local government to hold people accountable and get to the truth. Local news reporters have to cover what is going on in the state capitol, a town council meeting, or a school board meeting so that the public can be well informed about what goes on behind the scenes, who is running in which election in the community, and what are their issues that they represent. Third, local journalism covers news that are important and relevant to the regional community. The journalist must learn that it takes time to maintain a relationship with their contacts and sources in smaller areas where everyday consequences are now more immediate. The best way of sharing local news stories is if one lives locally, knows the area, and understands what issues are important to the residents of that area. It also helps if one writes about the residents when providing a strong sense of the community. Sometimes one needs to think about stories that provide optimism and hope. Finally, local journalism promotes local culture that reflects a multiracial community. Whether an event or a holiday, local journalism needs to understand some basic questions about what is going on in our area just for fun or amusement. Questions like, what is our area famous for? Who are some of our local heroes? What are some of the best cuisine places where you can get a bite to eat? Where do we like to go for fun? Or is there a cultural or local festival going on around the area? What is the main issue with local journalism right now? Local news is disappearing, and with the decline in original reporting, the public will only become less informed, which results in 3 different outcomes: decline in voter and civic engagement, increase in government waste, and increase in public polarization. From 2000 to 2018, weekday newspaper circulation fell from 55.8 million households to approximately 28.6 million. From 2000 to 2020, the newspaper industry's ad revenue fell by an estimated 80%. More than 50% of the biggest newspapers owned by financial institutions use cost-cutting strategies that end up stripping the resources used for the newsroom when it comes to producing original reporting on even basic information. What are some of the ways that we can help? Well, for starters, you can inform your friends and family the importance of local news and why they matter to them in the representation of their communities. There are right now dozens, if not more, nonprofit, for-profit organizations that are taking part right now in helping to restore and ensure the survival of local news outlets to their communities in the struggle to survive. If you want to get involved or be a member, there are some helpful websites such as Local News Initiative, the American Journalism Project, Knight Foundation, and Rebuild Local News. These are just some examples of the local news organizations that you can educate yourself with as a starter. While I admit that I am a viewer of watching MSNBC just to get some of the best news stories, I am always reminded that the best way to get your news is through your local paper or your local news anchor, and why local journalism makes us less partisan, more informed, and more aware of our voter and civic engagement duties to our community, but also to have fun and to represent what is best for the community you are a part of. This has been Allow Me to Explain. On the next episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, it's the Jordan Ramirez minisode Jordan Ramirez Recommends Beyond the Hills, directed by Christian Mungiu, airing this Monday at 12 p.m. on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Radio Public. You have been listening to Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. This series is now available to listen to at 4 p.m. on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Radio Public every Friday. And my minisodes, Jordan Ramirez Recommends, every Monday at 12 p.m. on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Radio Public. And just as a reminder to make sure to like and subscribe to my podcast on Spotify. Make sure to go to my blog website at filmtalkwithjordanramirezpodcast.wordpress.com with my latest podcast episode on the page labeled Episodes. You can contact me on my social media feeds such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I am also available on Letterboxd. Check out my YouTube channel as well, Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, and make sure to like and subscribe. If there is a film that you recommend that I would put for my next review, make sure to submit it to my social media accounts, and if you're lucky, make sure that you also recommend your favorite film and also put out your audition video on Instagram or on YouTube to make sure that you appear as a guest star on my next episode on a video podcast. Special video podcast anyway, a special video podcast episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. And until then, I'll see you at the movies.